The first day of school. One person survived the first day of school. That's good. Yeah. That's an almost empty nester. That doesn't matter. No. Kids are big. Get out of the house. Go to school. We're tired of looking at your face this summer. Go away. That's good. Hey, it's great to see everybody. So welcome to our second two of two. This will be the last one that we do like this for a while. But this is our second group gathering where we bring ladies and the guys together to continue to talk about love and relationships and how we begin to develop those and work on those. Of course, this is not just a marriage thing. And I know there are some people that did not come tonight because they did not want to deal with relationship stuff. And I know that's okay, that happens. But let me just tell you that there will be some spouse talk in that sense as you're talking about how we love one another, but it is not limited to that. The truth is, biblically, we're called to love everybody, and that means that we're going to love people that we work with, hopefully, that we go to school with, that we go to church with, that live in the same home with us, those kinds of things, and even the annoying person at Burger King or whatever that you deal with on a somewhat regular basis. You know, we love all of those people. And so these kinds of things will begin to help us develop that sense of love and connectedness with people that we interact with usually on a consistent basis, someone that we're doing life around. And so I'm proud of you for coming out tonight, and I thank you for spending the time here. I know it's rainy. It was the first day of school. It's kind of hard to deal with that. I know it's a struggle for many, but I'm really proud of you for coming out and doing this. So if you're not sure what we're doing again, this is the second of two nights that we're doing this. Next week, we'll go back to our normal schedule. And so, ladies, you'll still meet at 7 o'clock, guys at 7:30 in two different rooms. And we'll continue to work on the Measure of a Woman study for the ladies and the Measure of a Man study for the guys, which is ultimately in both of those talking about how to mature, to become fully mature as a spiritually mature woman or a spiritually mature man. And so that's what we're really working toward. But it was good to take time out because it fit into at least the ladies' sessions in their book on this topic of how we love one another. And so it was good for us to take some time to talk about lasting relationships and developing those relationships. And so primarily last week then we talked about the 5 love languages. And it's a tool. It is one tool, one perspective. Jennifer went to one of our bookshelves and pulled out a whole bunch of books that have to do with relationships and love and those kinds of things that may be useful. And they're out here, what we call the resource table, out here in the lobby. And those you can borrow from the Dunlaps. Those are part of the Dunlap library. So please don't nab them and never bring them back because there are probably more than one person would like to see some of that. But you don't need to go out and buy some of these resources, although you could. But one of the rules, I have several friends that read a lot, and they say, I never buy a book until I've read it once, which is weird to me. But they say, I want to borrow it and read at least into it 3 or 4 chapters, make sure it's worth reading the rest of, and then I'll go and buy it, which is okay. But you could do that with us if you want to, or read the whole thing. But there's also some audio things, like there's an audio set of the 5 love languages out there. So if you're not a reader and you don't want to read it, you can borrow that from us, listen to it in your car or whatever. And there's some DVD studies out there as well. And she only looked in 1 or 2 bookshelves, and we have others. There may be other resources we have. If you are looking for something in particular, let me know, and we'll see if we have it. But if you want to look at that after, and let me also make a quick plug, and that is we need help filling out the rest of those cards for the school district. And when the ladies are done and you leave tonight, it'd be great to have you go out there and work on that a little bit, and guys will offer that to you as well. So again, we're talking about the 5 love languages. In case you're not familiar with that topic and you weren't here last week, then the 5 love languages are simply a way that we communicate love. Just like in languages, if we're not speaking the same language, we're not going to communicate well. And so if you have someone that speaks German and another person that speaks Spanish and they're trying to communicate together, it's going to be difficult. Often in our relationships, it's as if we're speaking different languages. And so the idea of love is not just about what you say. And most of us would know that. Talk is pretty cheap, in fact. So if you were to say to someone, I love you, if it's not demonstrated, it doesn't mean anything. And so there are lots of ways that we would demonstrate love, as if they are languages. And each person is, and I didn't use this analogy last week, but each person is almost like a padlock, and you've got to find the right combination to open them up, if you think about it in that sense. And so you need to be able to communicate in a way that's going to help them understand love from you. And that's going to be different with different people in different circumstances and scenarios. And so the way that I like to have love shown to me from Jennifer would be different than the way that I would want love shown to me by Brad. And so we would, and so we need to understand, how do we love one another in the proper context of relationship and be able to do that effectively. And so again, it is a relational thing between spouses, but it's beyond that. It's also with our children, and it's also with people that we're close to that we do life together with. And so ultimately, that's what the 5 love languages are about. It's about these 5 primary dialects or ways that we communicate. And we put them up on the screen: words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And so what we did primarily last week was lay these out and explain what these mean. So if you missed it, again, we have it recorded. You can go back out on either the Women of Renews page or the Men of Renew page, and they're uploaded there, and you can listen to that class, and it would be useful probably to do that. But tonight, then, we want to jump back into it and give a little more detail. This is not all Gary Chapman stuff. A lot of this is Jennifer and Spencer stuff that we've worked through over the years, and also as we've taught this to lots of groups. And so we'll start then with this idea that we all need to feel loved.
Okay. One thing that that Gary Chapman does talk about in his book was that the need to feel loved is a primary human emotion. It's not the only human emotion, of course, but it is a primary human emotion. And we know from research, when they have children who are in situations where they're not loved as babies, that they can actually have a failure to thrive, that kind of thing. It's built into us to be able to feel love and to have that. So it's, like I said, it's not the only one, but it's the main one, and it is built in. It's something that God's put inside of us to be able to feel love and to give love. We do know also that love is related to security, and it's related to our self-worth, and it's related to our significance. And how that works is, with your security, when you feel loved by a person, you feel like you're valued, you feel like you have, no matter what else happens in the world, you have this sense of peace with that person, that you don't have that struggle, that you can be secure, you can be yourself. And so that is one thing that love does offer. So again, love isn't the answer for every situation, for everything, but it's a sense of grounding when it comes to security. Definitely is. For a couple that's focused on love, they can still disagree and they can still be secure in that. You can still have those disagreements, but you're secure in your relationship. So it's a safe fighting that it can kind of create.
And if I could say something about the safe fighting, one of the things often when I do marriage counseling or even premarital counseling is to talk about how to fight. Most people don't fight well. And that may sound strange. A lot of people go, well, you should never fight. That's baloney. We are going to fight. Can I get an amen? Tried that second service. Okay, well, you know that's true. So we're going to fight, and to think that you would never fight, although I have met some people along the way that have said to me, well, we never fight. And that's great, but I don't have that personality to never fight. So they're going to be fighting. At least most of us are going to fight at some point and argue. And you need to have some ground rules for how to fight. So in your relationships, this isn't a counseling session, but if we were in one, I would tell you one of the most important things you can do is create a sense of security in that by having safe ways to fight. Like, for instance, one of the places we have is we never bring up the D word. Never. So if we're fighting, we could be irritated and upset about something. Never, never, never are we going to say, well, let's just get divorced then. Never. It's off the radar. We're not going to say something like that. And so when you have security in the relationship, you can fight knowing this isn't going to end it. We can argue, but at some point, one of us is going to have to give in. And we're going to have to compromise, and we're going to love each other through it. But it gives a sense of security when you know this isn't the end of the world. We're going to make it through this, and that's important.
You know, and one reason that we had come to that is because in our first year of marriage, we did talk about divorce. We disagreed so much that first year of marriage because we were in that infatuation phase, and then whenever it gets down to the hard work of marriage, we're like, I don't like you. I don't really like who you are.
I've heard that a lot in my life.
And so we really had to kind of work that and then put that on the table as we got closer to God and go, okay, we can't ever say that again. We can't ever say that. So that was through some learning that we actually went through that. Now, the marriage is awesome now, but it took a while to get there. The next thing there is it's related to the need to feel love is related to your self-worth, because if you feel loved, again, you are affirmed, and you sense in yourself, I must be worth loving. If someone loves me, I must be worth loving. I must be valuable. So that's how it's related to your self-worth. And the last one is significance.
Can I say one thing about self-worth? The devil loves to play here, though. It comes out of where's your identity come from. So if we're having a bad day or a bad week, or we think no one loves us or likes us, it often comes because the devil's saying you're not worth anything, you're useless, and he's a liar. He is a liar. We have to find our identity in who God thinks we are, not who everyone else thinks we are. Because there are going to be some days no one likes you. That is how it goes. That doesn't mean you're a terrible person. It just means that day, no one likes you. I have had those days. Has anyone in the room ever had a day where you just feel like no one likes me? Okay? For the rest of you, you're awesome, and that's so good. But, I mean, there have been days that you just go, I just don't get it. I can't have a good conversation with anyone. I'm going to just have arguments with everybody, and it's just not going well or whatever. And then I begin to think, well, I must be a loser or terrible, and I'm not worth anything, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It is a cascading effect or a domino effect that the devil loves to put in motion. And it's just a lie. Everyone in here is worthy, and you have worth because you're made in the image of God. If nothing else, that means something, and it needs to mean something. And so, if you don't think you're worthy, you need to remind yourself that you are sons and daughters of the King. And this is important, and we need to remember that.
The last one is significance, that the need to feel love kind of enhances our significance, or it's very closely tied to that. Because all of us in life, we're somehow driven for success in some area. We're looking for significance. How am I special from someone else, And so we want our lives to count for something. When we die, very few people want to go, I don't want anyone to think about me ever again. Or, we want to have some sort of way that we feel like we made some sort of impact in our life. And so feeling loved by another person helps to give us that significance. Again, it's like, wow, I must mean something. I must have some purpose because I'm here. And it's a sense of significance whenever somebody loves me. And so I must be a significant person in their life for them to want to invest that time and that energy in me. So that's kind of some of the different ways that love is tied to our self-worth, our significance, and even our security.
And, on significance, we had an interesting scenario happen today. We have staff meetings on Monday. And we normally lock the door because the most colorful and interesting people walk in while we're trying to have meetings sometimes. And today we failed to lock the door. And a guy walked in and said, okay, what can we do for you? And he said, my mom has died. He was an old guy, and so mom was very old. My mom's died. She's not sure if she's a member of any church anymore because she's been sick for so long. And she didn't know if she belonged basically anywhere. And we don't have any pallbearers for her funeral on Thursday. And my church won't do it because they're all old, and one guy has, COPD basically, and so he's afraid he won't be able to breathe, and another one had some other health problem. What was it? Oh, he's afraid he would drop him. Yeah, he had back issues, so he's afraid he'd drop the casket. And it was hard to, just for a moment, it was hard to keep a straight face on that one. And it was like, see, the two guys you got, one's afraid he's going to drop the casket, and the other one's going to pass out. Can't breathe. I need my inhaler right now. Yeah. And so, they needed 8. And so they went to a couple different churches. They all said, no, we can't help you out. And then went to another church here in town, asked. They said, no. Went to the police department and said, no, we can't do that for you. So finally, some other church said, you should ask Renew. Let me just tell you, that is an amazing compliment. It really is, if you think about it. That all the other churches said no, but finally one of the churches says, if you ask those Renew people, they'll probably do it. And They actually love people. It's the weirdest thing. Because if you're not a member here, we don't love you. That's, no. So anyway, but speaking of significance, think about how sad the situation is. He must feel completely insignificant. My mom is completely insignificant. No one cares. No one's willing to help. Think about that. This is why it's so important you do life together with people, and that you invest in people's lives, and that you have a support system of people that will love you in those circumstances or whatever. And so, by the way, we still need about 6 more guys that can put a tie on Thursday at 2 and carry a casket for some woman we do not know. Thank you. And we'll go and we will love that family, and we'll never probably see them again, and that's okay. Huh? Well, he was very clear that he needs 8 men. And probably just their religious tradition, that would be important. But I thought the same thing, because it was like, hey, in our staff meeting, we can just knock this out. We'll just do it. We got it right here. I got extra ties. We'll tie them on the gals. We're in good shape. But you know, a couple of them have asthma, so it might not work. No, I'm just kidding. But you need a sense of significance. Significance, feeling loved, and that you belong is integral to life. And I don't want to ever get to a point where they have to worry about who's going to carry my casket. And how do you get there? You are in community, and you love people, and you're loved by people, and it's important. So
right. See Spencer at the end of this and give him your name.
Yeah. We recruited, I think, 2 already, so that's great. Have a couple more. So we're halfway there. Yeah, and by the way, my answer was, of course we'll do that. And so he said, well, can I get the names now? And it was like, no, it's to be determined, but believe me, we'll pull it off. And so tomorrow, I said, tomorrow I'll call you. Are you sure you'll call me? You betcha, we'll call you. And so it's good. All right, well, Jen's going to pass something out. So what I want to talk about for a few minutes is a concept called the love tank. Now, don't get sidetracked by the papers that are coming around. So we're trying the teacher thing, and I'm trusting that you all are better than 3rd graders. Because if you pass something out to a bunch of 3rd graders, they're all going to look at it and not pay attention to what the teacher says. So quit looking at it. You're already sinning. Yes. Sinning. Yes. Sinning. Don't look. It's okay. So let me explain it, and then you can look at it. Okay, so here's the thing. Tune in with me again. I know I sidetracked you myself. So with the love languages, there are what we would call love tanks. Now, we've kind of touched on this idea, but here's the deal. The 5 love languages, all of us have a need in all 5 areas. But we don't all have an equal need in all 5 areas. And so, for instance, my physical touch love tank is huge. It's big. It takes a lot to fill it up. But my words of affirmation tank is very small, and it doesn't take much to fill it up. And so if you can envision each of the 5 love languages as a tank, it will help you. And so here's the thing. When your love languages, when your love tanks are full, you're happy. Life is good. Things are going right. You feel secure and worthy and significant, like we just talked about. You feel fulfilled when your love tanks are full, especially, and now here's the thing. You have a different set of love tanks with mom than you do with, your wife or whatever. You have a different set of tanks with different people, but when those tanks are full, you feel good. When they're empty, though, you feel angry and insecure, and you feel a disassociation with people, alienation, separated from those people. And often what happens is people will have wandering eyes and wandering hearts and wandering minds. If the love is not coming and in and filling me up, my eyes tend to wander into other areas. This is what happens to everybody. Now, here's the other thing about the love tanks. Understanding the love languages and understanding how they're filled, which is primarily what we're talking about. And again, this is not just a spousal relationship. Your children have love tanks. Some of them have different levels of needs in different areas. We have a daughter that will literally walk up to Jennifer or myself and go, touch me. And that's what she'll do. And it's like, oh, love tank a little empty. Yes. Rub my shoulders. Fluff my hair. I need to be loved. Now, of course, the Dunlaps have that language built in, so they would come and go, or Jake would go, my gift love tank, little empty, but I created an Amazon wish list, and it totals about $3,000, but anything in there would be fine if you love me, that kind of thing. So, different things in there. But here's the thing. With those areas of love, they can also be abused very easily. Abuse often comes out of that. And here's the other thing. Abuse, if you know the way that they want to be loved, it's easy to hurt that person. And so, for instance, if you have a words of affirmation person, the easiest way to cause deep, lasting harm is to use nasty words to them. Someone that is not a words of affirmation person is sticks and stones may hurt my bones. I don't care what you think. That's me. I don't care if you think that I'm stupid, because I know you are. I know you are, but what am I? That kind of thing. A very mature response that I learned a long time ago. And so this is an area of easy abuse. So if I know someone has words of affirmation, that's their thing, that's what they need, then all I have to do is go, you did a terrible job, and you're ugly. And it's over. They're checked out. It's easy to destroy them. Everybody with me? So it's an easy area for abuse. And, of course, any of these can be abused, like physical touch. That can easily become an abusive thing. Would you agree? And, of course, then when physical abuse happens to someone that's oriented towards physical touch, it's even more detrimental than someone that doesn't have that as their primary love tank. And so with quality time, how would you really hurt someone that is a quality time person? You ignore them. Abandon them. You're done with them. Or how about gifts? We've heard it before in counseling, different things. My so-and-so, my birthday came and went. They didn't buy me anything. For a gifts person, it's incredibly destructive. And so that's the thing. It's the opposite of love. You can abuse somebody by just doing the opposite. And so you have to be careful to not allow these things to become manipulative, to be able to know that I know that Jennifer's primary love tank is quality time and acts of service. Those are her two primary tanks. They're the biggest ones. And so if I really want to harm her, then I withdraw in those areas, and it causes even more harm than something else. If I were to say, I'm never giving you a back rub again, her answer would be, okay. Who really hurts in that? Me. That's not good. But I know that wouldn't be a way that I would cause her harm. She wouldn't care at all. Her love tank for physical touch is that small. So there's a lot of room for abuse in those areas. And so, again, what you need to understand is some of the tanks are going to be bigger than other ones, and it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have a different set of those. You should have taken an assessment last week. If you didn't, I know Jennifer's already given the gals an opportunity to get one. Guys, if you didn't take it last week, I'll have some for you when we break out into the groups, and you can take the quiz and you can work through it. But here's the thing. Everybody has one or two of the primary ones. They do morph over time, and they're different for different people. Again, the way that I want my mom to show me love is different than what Jennifer is. In fact, what's interesting is with my mom, and Jennifer and I had a long debate about it today because my mom just moved down here. And so we were talking about how do you like for your mom to show you love. Now, with your mom, the primary way that you like to be shown love from your mom is words of affirmation. I'm probably the same for my mom, which is interesting because I'm not words of affirmation with anybody else. And it's probably my mom. That was the one. But it's not like, well, I like your curly hair, not kind of that kind of thing. Although she did ask me the other day, she looked at me and she goes, you want me to cut your hair? For words of affirmation, God, that's bad news. It's like, no, you haven't touched it since I was 13, and that's just right. So that's all good. We're all good. But if she were to say, I'm really proud of you for this, or you really did a great job with this, that's nice. That feels good. It fills a tank there. And so everybody's tanks are going to be different. They're going to morph over time, but we still need all five. So the diagram on your table that you've been dying to look at, you may look at now. The one side that you should look at is blue. It has little pretty blue tanks on it. Now, on this diagram, I just gave you a sample. It's not necessarily mine, it's just an example of one. So here's what I want you to do is understand that the size of the tank we have is white, outlined in blue. So you could, if you know what your love languages are, you could draw the tank based on the size that you think this is for you. And then you would want to go back through and fill in how full it is, basically. Because again, if your love tanks are full, you feel great. You feel fulfilled, but if they're empty, you feel angry. Now, here's what I'm going to say for us tonight. I'm not going to actually, I thought about this just since we've been here. I don't want you to fill in the answer for it. I want you to do that on your own as homework. But I do want you to take just a couple of minutes, because you should be able to do it literally in 1 minute, and just fill in what size of the tank is for each of these for yourself. Don't fill in how full it is. You do that on your own time, okay? Now, you get to decide who you're filling this out for, because again, with my mom, for instance, my words of affirmation tank would be big, but my quality time tank is small, physical touch tank is small, acts of service tank small, gifts is small. And so if I'm doing it with my mom in mind, I would fill out that one way. If I'm doing it with Jennifer in mind, my words of affirmation tank is really small, my quality time tank's really big, my physical touch tank is off the page, my acts of service tank is pretty small, and my gifts tank's probably in the middle. Does that make sense? And so in your mind, have in mind who that is, and then do it for somebody else and have someone in mind. So if I were to think of my mother in that example, her words of affirmation tank would probably be pretty high from me. In other words, what do I think her love tanks look like from me? I would say my mom, her words of affirmation tank's pretty big. Her quality time tank is really big. Her physical touch tank doesn't register on the scale. Acts of service tank is off the page. Gifts tank is negative, because she would yell and scream at me and hide $20 bills in my car if she thought that I bought her anything. It's a true story. It's the struggle is real. And so that's how that would go. And so then what would I do later? I would go through and go, okay, so with these tanks that my mom has, how am I doing? Am I filling them well, or am I not? And this gives us an indication of how well we're being loved and how well we're loving. So just take a couple minutes and just do one for yourself. What size of the tank do you think you have? And then pick somebody else. What size of the tank do you think they have? But don't fill in how you're doing in those tanks tonight. You do those as homework.
I would say that if you're here with your spouse and you decide to do it with your spouse, don't peek. This will give you something to talk about later tonight, and you go, hey, this is what I thought about you. What do you think? So don't peek at each other. Kind of hide it.
But again, I really don't want you to fill in the answers yet.
But even
I think just the size of the tank.
Yep.
So we're going to give you just a minute or so and do that, and then we'll come back and we'll jump back in. Okay. Sorry, we had a miscommunication on that. I do have some more copies of the test if you want one. Hey, one thing I want to just say really quick is that talking about this topic and asking, am I being fulfilled in those areas of love? Or am I doing a good job of fulfilling someone else in their love areas? It can create a lot of tension and some pain and some frustration. It can reveal some areas of hurt and brokenness. And we talked about this a little bit last week. I want to encourage you, if that's you, if you're looking at it and going, my love tank is this big and it's totally unfulfilled, totally empty. What it does is it highlights areas where you feel unloved. So a couple things. If that's you, you need to understand, again, that this is a conversation starter if you can. And not every situation you're going to be able to have a conversation. But it hopefully will open up dialogue in a safe way to discuss things like this. If you have someone that is not cooperating and not loving well, we're going to talk about how to deal with that in a little bit here in just a few minutes. But ultimately, don't let it destroy you. It is something that's good to reveal, because you can know if you've been upset or feeling discouraged and you don't know why. This might be why. This might help to shine some light in a dark place. But it's also one of those things to pray through and ask God to be the one who fulfills you. And again, we'll talk about that at the end of this. That will be the last thing we talk about. So try not to let this destroy you or get you discouraged. It is a way to begin conversation or to begin processing through, how do I feel, or why do I feel the way that I feel? And of course, there are people that are in this room who are surrounding you that would love to talk through it with you and help you if this causes some pain, because it has the potential to do it. Most of the time, the areas that cause us frustration and pain, we hide them. But the problem with that is we don't find healing when we hide them. We want to shine some light in that stuff and allow God to bring restoration and healing, because he can in these areas. So don't let this ruin you. Let it be a light that shines in something and helps reveal what we do with that. Okay, so Jennifer's going to jump back in with primary love language.
Okay, there's some of you who may have taken the test, or maybe you haven't, and you're like, okay, so how do I know what my primary love language is? I'm not really quite sure. I took the test. Maybe it doesn't make sense. And what I would say about that is there's a couple different ways, according to Gary Chapman in the book, that you can kind of help figure this out. And Spencer will talk a little bit on how you figure it out for someone else. And so the first one there is, what does that other person, again, it could be a marriage partner, it could be a boss, anyone, what does that person do, or what do they fail to do that will hurt me the most? Spencer kind of talked about abuse just a little bit ago, so again, if you were someone who their tone of voice really bothers you, or maybe the way that they say things, or negative comments, that might mean you are a words of affirmation person, because it wounds you so deeply. So what they do or they fail to do that hurts you the most. So the opposite of that is probably what your love language is. Number 2 on there is, what is something that you have asked the most? So when you think about in relation to that person, be it your parent, your spouse, whoever, what is it that you usually request of them? Is it things like, can you help me with this? Or can you do this? Or is it more of something like, hey, can you come sit and spend some time with me? Or will you go to this place with me? So is it a service thing that you're asking them to do? Is it that you want them to spend some time with you, and so that's what you're asking? So if you think about what I usually ask them about the most, that is usually one of those things that makes you feel loved. We tend to ask for that. And then the third way is, how do you show your love to others? Now, this is a tricky one because it's not 100%, but sometimes the way that you show love to others might mean it's the same for you. Now, for me, it's not true. I like to give gifts, but I don't want gifts. But for some people, they say they may, they like words of affirmation, so they may give lots of words of affirmation because they like that back. Or they want service for them, and so they like to give service. So it is one way that you might be able to try to figure out your own. It's kind of, so how do I show it to others? And maybe that's what I want to.
Yeah, and I think that's really good, especially with people in your life that you may not be inclined to take a test with. Like with my kids, what am I asking from my kids most of the time? Sit down, tell me about your day, turn your phone off. I just want time with you, And so how do I, when the kids give me that, when the kids give me quality time, I feel really loved. Does that make sense? When they could be doing something else, but I find that because I ask for that a lot. Why don't you come and hang out with me? Let's just talk. Let's go do this or whatever. Or, of course, acts of service from a kid. If one of the kids were to get up one day and go out and mow the grass, because at this point it's going to take a baler. It's going to, so if you got one, come on over, bale that lawn. But if one of the kids were to get up and go bale the lawn, and then not even say anything about it. And
without being told.
Yeah, without me, threatening their life to go bale the lawn or something, or have to pay them, to coerce them into it. They were just like, I had nothing else to do, so I decided to mow the lawn. I would feel like the most loved father in the world. It'd be like, you did that for me? That kind of thing. It would be amazing. And so that's where we begin to think, what am I asking for? Because that may reveal what that love tank really looks like for other people in my life. So, you already did it for me. Thank you. All right, so understanding what someone else's love language then is, again, and Jennifer kind of touched on it a little bit. Again, have people take the assessment if possible, but asking this question, what action of mine upsets or hurts that person the most? So if I were to treat someone a certain way, it will reveal to you probably what their love language is. So if I were to pick on Dixie, for instance, if I were to say something to her like, that was really dumb, and she went, okay, she's probably not a words of affirmation with me. But if I said that was kind of dumb, and she just, just destroyed her, and had to go home for an hour to rest after that, it would probably mean she's words of affirmation with me. Make sense? And so how people respond in that. What action of mine upsets them the most? What requests or favors does this person ask of me the most? So if someone were to say, hey, did I do a good job on that? What did you think of that I accomplished? I accomplished this. What'd you think? What does that mean? They need me to affirm them with words that says, you did a good job, And so, again, the way that they request helps us to get an idea. In what ways do others regularly express love to me? And, again, that we keep coming back to that. And we told the story last week. Again, in the early days, because I liked gifts, I would get her gifts because it was a way that my brain said, this is what love looks like. I'll do this. And so that helps to give some ideas. So, again, ask yourself, what do these people complain about the most? What does your mom complain about the most? Or what do your kids complain about the most? Or what does a spouse complain about the most? This should give you an idea of what their love language really is. It's important. And again, it can apply to anybody. But if you can pay attention, you'll see it, and it's usually pretty clear. So if you still can't figure it out then, there's two possible reasons. If you just can't figure out how we're communicating what the love language is, it probably means your love tanks are either really, really full, and they stay full all the time, so it's difficult for you to even say, I don't need anything. Everything's great. Everything's perfect. It would be hard for that person to isolate what their primary love language is, because if their tanks are full all the time, they're not even going to know if something feels empty. Does that make sense? The time that you're aware of emptiness is when it gets empty, or when it's draining out, or if you know that the bottom of that tank is rusty and it has a pretty decent leak in it, and it just continues like I need more and more and more, that's clear. But if the tank is always full, you may not realize what your love languages really are. The other side is if all of them are completely empty, you may have a hard time knowing which ones mean the most because it's all empty and you feel unloved, unfulfilled. And so those make it very difficult. So, again, taking a test might help, but again, it helps to have someone in mind that you're thinking of when you take the test because it's going to be different for everybody. And so let me also say this about empty love tanks. It's not uncommon for you to have completely empty love tanks across the board with lots of people in your life. It's just not uncommon. And so don't be surprised. I've heard it lots and lots of times over the years of counseling where people feel completely unloved. They don't touch me. They don't talk to me. They don't tell me good or bad. I want them, kind of that joke of bad attention's better than no attention. I get no attention, get no touch, no time, no act, nothing. There's just nothing, complete apathy. I would say it's almost common. It's almost common in relationships these days. And that is from children that think that of their parents. It's from parents that think that of their kids. And that's no matter the age. It is relational ties in whatever way, friendships, marriages, whatever. And so you have to be aware, what are the things that are affecting that? What are the outside stressors that come in that make people not in tune with how they love you? Here's the thing. If your spouse or your best friend has had a terrible couple of weeks, they may not focus on you. They may have outside factors that are just completely overwhelming them, and they're just not thinking toward you. That doesn't mean they hate you. It just means they're distracted. Everybody with me on that? And so now here's the thing. We can cause ourselves to be distracted by our own doing as well. These are one of the worst things ever that can fully distract me, and I'm just not in tune. And so if I'm always doing this, I can miss a lot of life. I will tell you one of the things I said to one of my children. I won't say which one she is, but I will. Do you know when I joked about that? I just got to take a step out of this. So a couple of weeks ago, we did our missions debrief, and I was talking about the airline messing up and blowing all this stuff up and doing terrible. And I said, I'm not going to mention who the airline is, Delta, and then kept going. The next day, Delta's technology crashed, and a bunch of you sent me messages like, I'm never getting on your bad side, No, it's just because Delta sucks. I mean, it had nothing to do with me. So that's how it goes. Anyway, so this particular child of mine that I said, why do you do this so much? Because the reality is you're going to miss real life while you watch other people's lives go by. And we do. It's so easy to get distracted by looking at someone else's life. We forget to live our own. It's the craziest thing ever. But it is what it is. So we need to make sure that we don't allow this to keep us from loving people. And it can happen. Would you agree? Everybody? Okay. And so what are the distractors? What are keeping you from loving well? It may not be that. Maybe it is. This is going to be one of those, if the shoe fits, wears it. Please don't yell at me later. I don't know who has issues here with that or not. So I promise you, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, Steve. No, there's no Steve in here. It's okay. Everyone looked around real quick. It's all good. A lot of times, these are seasons people go through. They get distracted. Seasons, tough times at work sometimes come home. Would you agree with that? Stresses at work can affect the family. And we have to be very purposeful to try not to let that happen. It's difficult to leave work at the door. People say it all the time. It's just not a reality. And so how do we begin to compromise and work through life together when that's the case? And you have to do your best to set boundaries in life. I have boundaries. When we're out doing something together, I have to turn my phone off because this thing buzzes and dings and rings and beeps literally 24 hours a day. It does. That's what happens when you have this many people. That's okay, but there are times that I've got to just be focused on my wife and kids or somebody else. If I'm in a meeting, I need to, most of the time, do the same thing because it's respectful and that kind of stuff. But seasons of life get very busy, and we've got to make sure that doesn't destroy our love relationship, that we're focusing on what the right thing is. So what do you need? You need open dialogue. You need constant discussion about it. And hopefully what happens is this kind of thing can become common language in your home, with your friends, with people, so you have permission to say, my love tank's empty. I need time. I need whatever. And if you can get that relationship, no matter who it's with, best friend, a worker, or whatever, if you can get that language there, you can have open dialogue, and it works. Because if you don't, especially in a marriage relationship, if you do not have good dialogue about love languages, if you are not aware of the busyness of seasons and how easy it is to get distracted, most people will go seek love from someone else if they're not being loved. That's just the truth. I don't have to convince any of you. I know you already know it. People will go seek it out from someone else. So if you feel like someone is filling one of your love tanks more than the people that should be, you need to stop it. Everybody with me? It's important. Be aware and say, you know what? I've allowed that words of affirmation tank to not be filled by my wife, but by this other female. I have got to be careful there and put an end to that so I don't allow my heart to follow, because it can easily do that. If you allow your mind to begin developing stories and scenarios and circumstances, your heart will follow right in line, because emotions will jump right on that train, and now you've gone down a scary road. So if you're not being fulfilled at home, don't go seek it out from someone else. And the truth is that if someone else is filling it, you need to be very careful to not allow that to replace what someone else is supposed to. Everybody with me? It's really, really important. Affairs start in the mind. Emotional affairs happen all the time if people open themselves up for others to fulfill stuff. One of the things that I have unfortunately had lots of conversations with over the years because of, again, social media and Facebook and things like that, is rekindling old love tanks with old flames and of relationships in the past that feel exciting and squishy and all that, and it ends up overshadowing the real love tank, because that ends up being more infatuation than anything, or people convince themselves in their mind that's what real love is, and what I have here is not, because I'm not being fulfilled here. Being fulfilled here, I might as well run after that, because that's where love is. Guess what? It doesn't work long term. It works short term, maybe. But infatuation is not going to last, and all you do is blow other stuff up. So we have to be very, very careful of that in our relationships. And ultimately, here's the last thing I want to say about that, and that is, again, you have to allow God to fulfill you. If you are empty in these areas, realize you were built with a God-shaped, God-sized void. You were and are. And God is the only one that's going to fill it. And oftentimes we try and fill this longing and emptiness with stuff or people, God's the only one that's going to fill that. And then if you're committed in a relationship, where mature love comes from is to say, I will only allow her to fulfill those things for me. And it's a choice, because that's what love is. Love is a choice. That's what that agape love is. I'm going to choose this and not choose something else. Because when you make one choice, if I make the choice to only allow Jennifer to fill the ultimate spousal love tank, it's also saying I'm not going to allow someone else to. But it's a choice. And there will be seasons it doesn't work right. Seasons of busyness and frustration and whatever, where things get low and someone else says, hey, I'm over here, I'm happy to do that. And you got to be very careful. You need to be aware, have your eyes wide open.
All right, the next slide, please. We're going to talk a little bit about, before we start wrapping it up, we talk about radical behavior. When you actually take these principles and you apply them, so it's not just head knowledge, it means there's action to it. You can radically change not only your behavior, but when you learn to speak it for somebody else, it can radically change their behavior. Okay? Now, that can be for the good or the bad. Once you have the knowledge of this, if you choose to use it in a negative way, you can destroy people. And so that's not what we're wanting here. Just because you understand it doesn't mean you use it as a tool against somebody else. I'm just going to say that. But if you can learn to speak another language, so your spouse or those other people in your life that speak different from you, once you learn that, you have a responsibility to continue to fill in that love tank and to go into it with a really high expectation, because time and time again has shown when people understand these principles, as in our marriage, same thing, that it changes behavior. Why? Because people start feeling loved. And when they start feeling loved and appreciated and self-worth and security and all those things we already talked about, guess what happens? They start pouring into yours. It opens up dialogue that you may never have had before. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes being selfless, because you're going to be like, I'm not getting anything out of this. But it is worth it, and it will definitely can change behaviors in your marriage, in your relationships.
Okay, last slide, and then we're going to finish up. So, I already said it. She said it. We've said it many times. You've heard it here at Renew over and over and over and over again. Love is a choice. It's always a choice. Here's the thing, though. Poor choices in the past do not necessarily mean that you have to continue to make poor choices. In fact, your future is not dependent on your present circumstances or your past circumstances. If you've jacked this up, draw a line in the sand and start over. That's the answer. God is a God of second chances, so if you've messed it up with him, come back. He wants you. Now, you won't always get that kind of levity with human beings, but if you are willing to try, then you can step back in. So just because you haven't done a good job with it in the past doesn't mean that you can't do a good job with it in the future. Today is day one, in many cases, for a lot of people to say, I'm going to begin working this way. The in-love experience is different from the emotional need for love. So again, in the beginning of relationships, it's always exciting. It's always fun. There's infatuation that lasts maybe a couple of years in there. But generally speaking, where you have to go is a mature love. And this, of course, is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. And scanning the audience, I can safely say this, and that is that when sex comes into the relationship before marriage too early in the infatuation stage, it messes up the ability for long-term emotional love often. Often. It's dangerous because it ends up giving people the wrong definition of what love actually looks like. Now, again, that's not an absolute thing, but it takes purposefulness to say, we're going to start over and we're going to start again and begin building a deep, longing relationship that's going to last for a lifetime. And it just takes a lot of time and effort to sometimes build the emotional, long-lasting love picture as opposed to just a physical one. Would you agree that a lot of times in a lot of relationships, people rely on the physical in order to carry them through? Would you agree with that? That doesn't work, does it? It might work for a while, but if a mature love doesn't develop, the physical love will not carry it. It won't carry it long term. There will become a point in time where we just can't get along, and the physical no longer does it. Demonstrating an action of love for your spouse that doesn't come naturally to you is an even greater expression of love. So, if you are not good at words of affirmation, but your spouse or someone that you love, your kid, your mom, or whoever, if they're really, really words of affirmation people, you're going to have to work at giving them love in a way that they understand it. It's going to take work. Does that make sense? If you're super awesome at giving words of affirmation and the person you love is a words of affirmation person, all right. It's going to be great. But if you're terrible at it and that's what they need, you're going to have to take action to figure out how to make sure that you are loving them purposefully. Because again, love is a choice. To say, even though I'm not good at this, but if that's what you need, I'm going to go after it and I'm going to work toward it. And that's in every area, every area. If you don't naturally think it, it's going to take some work. So the choice to love is sometimes made in the face of negative feelings too. So here's the reality. You may be in a relationship with someone, or maybe have at some point in your life, where you're wondering, can I actually love this unlovable person? Where they just seem like they're too far out there and they're just too hard to love. Can you love someone that you might actually think you hate? It's a challenging question. I've dealt with it a lot in marriage counseling. Here's the thing. Luke chapter 6. It gives us some idea. Luke chapter 6, verse 27 and 28. Let me start there. Luke chapter 6, 27, 28, and then I'll drop down to 31 and 32. Here's what it says. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. That's more about words, by the way, more than anything. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. And then dropping down to verse 31, it says, and as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. The idea is that the ones that are unlovable are the ones it takes a lot of agape love. It takes a choice to love them anyway. And so here's the question. What would happen if you really, really loved in the way that we're talking about? That's not in emotionalism, but it is a choice to do the best for them when they don't deserve it. What would happen in any relationship if you chose to really love them? What would happen? Now, here's the thing. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. You could spend years loving someone well and them still not reciprocate. Would you agree with that? It's possible. However, let's say that it could work. What if you really love someone well and they woke up to realize you really love me and it opened up their eyes to do something else? Would it be worthwhile? Hopefully the answer is yes, because the truth is that does happen and it can happen. Although your emotional side may say, I want to run if the relationship is in big trouble, the Christianity side of me, who says I have to love even the unlovable one, says I need to stay and do my best to love this person well. Either way, it can involve pain, though. And for those of you that have had marriage challenges and turned it around, you know that it's not easy no matter what. It causes pain to go, and it causes pain to stay sometimes. And so what we choose, hopefully, is I'm going to do it Jesus' way, the best that I can, even if this person is my enemy. Again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be reciprocal. It doesn't mean that it's going to work. But if you work at it, then hopefully what happens is something changes on both sides. And so here's the thing. If you feel emotionally empty, your spouse probably does too. Would you agree with that? If your kids feel emotionally empty, then you might also, or if you feel emotionally empty from your children, maybe it's a two-way thing. So here's a hypothesis then, a good scientific term. If you love your significant other well for 6 months, if you were to say, I am going to pay attention to these love languages, and I'm going to go out of my way to love them well for 6 months, it's possible this person could turn totally around. And it could totally and completely change the relationship. It's part of that Luke 6:38 thing that talks about what you give will be given back to you. And hopefully that's the case. Of course, that's more of a proverb, which means it's not an absolute promise, but it's a general principle. If people feel loved, they tend to return that love. Again, not as a way to manipulate the situation. It is a choice to love. No guarantee, but I choose to do the very best even when you don't deserve it. And so this is ultimately the premise of the entire book of Gary Chapman on the love languages is our need for love is our absolute deepest emotion, or our need for love is our deepest emotional need. We need to feel loved. That's what we want. And so when the need is being met, we tend to respond positively to other people. And so hopefully that's what we're working on. So let's wrap it up with this. The love languages are ultimately a tool. That's it. They're not perfect. It is a tool. There are lots of tools out there. I would encourage you, if you have relational challenges, to become a student of how to build relationships. Don't worry about what every book out there says, because a lot of them are absolutely crazy. But it doesn't hurt to read them and compare them through the lens of Scripture to make sure it makes sense. Because if someone were to say, you know, if you were to, if you're having marital problems, if you were to enter into a swinging relationship for a while, that would totally fix it. Well, this would be a problem from a biblical perspective. Everybody with me? And so you have to be careful what you read. Not everything is going to be equal. You need to look at things that are going to be biblically sound and have a God-centric focus to be able to take your cue. Ultimately, though, hopefully the Bible itself would do it. Hopefully what you could do is become a student of relationships from the Bible. Look at the New Testament. See what it looks like to really love someone, and you'll be amazed at how well you can find the 5 love languages built within. And we have a handout for everybody that has some of that on there. So here's the thing. It takes a choice. You all have a choice to make. I have a choice to make. She has a choice to make. And you have to make that choice every day. Every day is a new day. Am I going to wake up and am I going to choose to love her, regardless of how she responds, or regardless of whether I'm annoyed by something or irritated or distracted or whatever? Am I going to choose to love her today? This is a choice we all have to make. Okay? So, again, love language is a tool. Hopefully it's a useful tool. If you've got it all figured out, here's what I'm going to say to you. Share it with somebody else. There are people that you sit next to at work. There are people that you sit next to at church. There are people that you meet on a daily basis who do not feel loved at all, who feel empty and lost and broken, and they need you to love them. And sometimes it's as simple as a kind word. Hannah and I went out on a date last week, and it was great. Jennifer was working. Jake was in Kansas City. So Hannah and I went out for some good quality time. And we were spending some time, and there was a guy where we were eating who was by himself, and he was bent over like this and wouldn't even look up and ate like this. And I thought to myself, that dude is broken and sad. Am I going to walk by, or am I going to at least acknowledge his presence? We have a choice in that. I did acknowledge his presence, so in case you're wondering. But we have a choice to make in those moments. Everyone needs to be loved. And it's not, you don't have to do an analysis on everybody. You don't have to do a love tank analysis on everybody. The people close in your life, you should think about it, because it's a tool to help you make sure you're loving them well. But the truth is, every human being you interact with needs to be loved. And it's amazing how far a kind word will go. It's amazing how a little thing will go, allow someone to go in front of you in line, a gift for somebody that's undeserved. It's a moment of grace to allow someone to come in. When somebody's kid is screaming their head off, to smile at them instead of scowl, that goes a long way. I remember having little kids. And I also remember being the scowler before we had children. And then we had children and went, oh, we shouldn't have scowled at so many people. And so now I go out of my way to smile at the people who have the screaming kid, because I want them to know it's okay. I've been there. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing how you can love someone with a facial expression, with a kind word, with a small act of service, and don't take the credit for yourself, just to do it because I'm a Jesus guy and I want to do a good thing for you. Everybody with me? Everybody needs to be loved. Everybody. So go and be the people that will give that love. Hopefully, yes, to the people that you're closest with, but also to every person that you meet every day. Okay? All right, so we're done for tonight with the ladies. Guys, we're going to keep you for about 30 minutes. We're going to work on some group work. Maybe we can group together. Let me say this. We really could use your help in the lobby. Dixie will give you some instruction if you can. But if you can't, we promise not to say bad things about you when you leave, okay? I promise not to say bad things about you. No, I'm just kidding. If you can help for a few minutes, that'd be great. Other than that, next week, ladies, we'll see you at 7 o'clock. Guys, let's come over here to the first couple 3 tables, and then we'll jump back in here.